Have you ever stopped to wonder why some friendships feel like they could last forever? Like an ancient oak, while others just, well, they fizzle out. Maybe with a new job or a change in hobby.
Yeah, like a fleeting summer romance almost.
Exactly. Or maybe you felt that deep, undeniable trust for one leader, while another, even if they seem competent, just leaves you feeling, I don't know, uncertain.
That sense of unease.
Human connection, it seems so simple on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're social creatures. We seek each other out.
We do.
But underneath, it's arguably one of life's most profound and, well, intricate experiences. It's way more complex than just liking someone.
It truly is. These connections, they shape not just our personal well-being, but also the very fabric of our communities, our workplaces, even our understanding of what it means to be human. The dynamics are incredibly nuanced, often working on levels we don't even consciously recognize.
And that's exactly what we're here to unpack today on the Deep Dive. We're going to pull back the curtain on what genuinely makes connections meaningful.
Yeah, dig into it.
We'll meticulously dissect how trust is built, and sometimes, sadly, how it gets broken, and explore the fascinating psychological and sociological forces that are constantly shaping every interaction we have, often without us even realizing it.
And our mission for you, our listener, is really to give you a comprehensive understanding of these human bonds. We want to cut through the noise, the assumptions, the surface level stuff,
Right.
and provide you with a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about the surprising facts that govern our connections. Think of it as your roadmap to navigating this complex landscape with newfound clarity.
And we've got a fantastic stack of sources to guide us on this deep dive. We'll be drawing on some ancient philosophical wisdom. Yes, we're actually going all the way back to Aristotle to kick things off.
Always a good place to start.
Alongside modern empirical studies and some truly insightful academic papers on ethical leadership. Plus, we'll delve into compelling psychological and sociological explorations of empathy and the very fabric of morality.
So, get ready to gain some seriously fresh perspectives on the people in your life, and maybe even on yourself.
Okay, so where do we begin this exploration? How do we lay the groundwork?
Well, let's start by laying a foundational stone, maybe, a timeless framework for understanding the sort of tiers of connection that have existed for millennia.
I love that idea. Let's really dig in. We're starting with what I find to be the ultimate ancient blueprint for relationships. Aristotle's 3 types of friendship. This comes from a fascinating discussion we found actually dissecting his Nicomachean Ethics.
Amazing work.
It's almost startling, isn't it, how relevant these ideas still feel thousands of years later.
It truly is remarkable. What's fascinating is how Aristotle, without modern data or brain scans, intuited these categories of connection that resonate so deeply today. He saw that not all friendships are created equal, and he classified them based on the primary motivation, the benefit derived. It's about the underlying purpose each connection serves.
And the first category he lays out, maybe the most fundamental, or at least the most pragmatic initially, is what he calls friendships of utility. Now, that sounds a bit cold, right? Like a transaction.
It does, a little, but it's actually incredibly common and, well, practical. These are the bonds built purely on mutual benefit, where each person gains something practical from the other.
Right. The source gives examples like business partners, work colleagues.
Exactly. Or even neighbors helping each other out just because it's convenient. The core idea is they serve a specific purpose, a practical exchange, kind of a quid pro quo. You're friends because they provide a benefit, and you provide one back.
And here's the crucial bit. They're inherently fleeting. The source explains that when the benefit diminishes for one or both parties, the friendship fades.
It makes sense.
Like that gym buddy who vanishes when you switch gyms. Or the work acquaintance you barely speak to after one of you changes departments. Someone mentioned work friends often disappear like a switch once the utility's done. It's not malicious, it's just the nature of that bond.
Aristotle also noted these tend to occur more frequently among the old, which might seem counterintuitive at first glance.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, if you think about it, older adults often have more established professional networks, maybe more defined practical needs, managing estates, things like that. These utilitarian exchanges become more common, maybe more necessary. They're efficient, yes, but rarely built for deep emotional intimacy.
Okay, that makes sense. And we move to the second type, friendships of pleasure. These are the connections formed around shared enjoyment, common interests, pursuits.
Fun stuff.
Think about it. Your high school sports teammates, college buddies, those summer friends you only saw during the break. The discussion we looked at gives these vivid examples, and they really
Yeah.
bring it to life. We all have these, right?
Absolutely. The emphasis here is squarely on shared experience and enjoyment. And while these friendships can be incredibly fun, create great memories, feel very warm and immediate, the source highlights that this shared pleasure might be the only connection, which makes them situational and, by their nature, more fleeting. They're enjoyable, sure, but often lack a deeper foundation that can withstand big changes.
And just like utility friendships being more common among the old, Aristotle apparently said pleasure friendships are more common among young people, which makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It really does. When you're young, you're often bonding over immediate experiences. Parties, sports, classes, discovering music or hobbies together.
Totally.
But what happens when the team breaks up, or you graduate, or the hobby isn't central anymore? Often the intensity fades, maybe the whole friendship does. It's just a natural evolution.
Okay, so that brings us to the pinnacle.
Mhm.
Aristotle's third type, friendships of the good, or sometimes called virtue or character.
Mm,
This is where it gets really interesting because this connection includes benefit and pleasure, but its foundation is something far deeper.
much deeper and more enduring.
It's fundamentally based on virtue. It's about seeing and appreciating the good in them and they in you. It's not about what you get from them, but cherishing who they are and how they maybe inspire you to be better.
Exactly. And the source stresses the immense investment needed here. These friendships take time and intention to build and maintain. They don't just happen, you have to actively cultivate them, like tending a garden, you said.
Yeah, exactly. You have to put in the work.
But the payoff, according to Aristotle and echoed in that discussion, is immense. These are the friendships that can be enduring and impactful, and they may last a lifetime. They're where you truly grow together, maybe challenge each other to live more virtuous lives.
The source even encourages listeners to go Google Nicomachean ethics to really dive in. And honestly, we'd second that. You might be surprised how relevant it all feels.
Definitely worth the read.
So if these friendships of the good are so amazing, why aren't more people experiencing them? The discussion we looked at had some pretty candid views on how rare they are. It really highlights how special they must be.
Yeah, many people felt they'd never really had one, or maybe only one or two. One person bluntly said, most people never do.
Why?
And an academic perspective shared suggested people are quite lucky to have more than one or two such friendships over their entire lifetime. Which really makes you wonder, right? If they're so fulfilling, why are they so elusive? What makes them so hard to find or build?
It seems to come down to the profound impact they have when they exist and just the sheer depth of investment they demand. We saw some really compelling stories, like the person whose best and oldest friend died last month, who then said, I wouldn't trade having known her for almost anything.
Oh, wow. That hits hard. That's the kind of irreplaceable impact we're talking about, a real testament to how these bonds endure, even through grief.
And then there was the person who felt lucky enough to have got to marry the one person I met who falls into the third category.
That's fascinating. It really makes you reflect on marriage, doesn't it? It challenges the idea that all marriages automatically are friendships of the good.
Right. It implies some might be based more on utility or pleasure, which is, well, a sobering thought for anyone examining their own deepest partnerships.
It's a powerful point. Makes you really think about the foundation of your most important relationships. The discussion also got into this nuanced debate. Are these friendships permanent or just enduring? Some felt permanent was too strong. Very few things last forever, right?
Yeah, that seems fair.
And this is where that analogy of a house or a boat came in. The source clarifies these are things that, if well maintained, can last for life. So while these friendships can last a lifetime, they still need maintenance. They aren't static, they're living relationships needing ongoing effort. Neglect them, and even the strongest bond can weaken.
So unlike utility and pleasure friendships that easily fall away when the context is lost, these are the friends where even after months or years apart, when you reconnect, it's like you haven't missed a day.
Exactly. That captures it perfectly. They endure because the bond is based on shared character, shared virtue, not just shared circumstances or activities. But you still got to put in the work.
Which highlights that even the best relationships aren't passive. They need active cultivation. So how do you actually do that? How do you foster these deeper bonds practically?
And this is where it gets real, isn't it? If they need maintenance, what does that look like? What's the secret?
Yep.
Well, the consensus seemed to be that it demands a lot of work. It's not just about finding the right people, which is a common idea, but crucially, making sure that you are the right person, too.
Ooh, that's a twist. So it's about self-reflection, too.
Absolutely. It leads to that powerful advice someone shared. Be the type of friend you want to have.
Ah, I like that.
It shifts the focus from what you get to what you contribute. It's about embodying the virtues you seek in others, creating that reciprocal cycle of goodness.
And it goes beyond just shared activities or
Yeah.
surface chat, right? Which are more typical of pleasure friendships. One user suggested, look for people that want to talk about ideas rather than friends to do shit with.
That really resonated. And it aligns perfectly with that Eleanor Roosevelt quote someone shared. Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people.
So if friendships are virtue, they will predominantly discuss ideas with a mixture of events and people as filler. They dig deeper.
Exactly. Whereas utility or pleasure friendships often focus predominantly on events or people with the occasional idea, if any. The depth of conversation really reflects the depth of the bond.
And it's not always smooth sailing either. Part of it is growth.
Right. These friendships often involve mutual growth. Even things like low-key ego battles or mini debates with old friends can be good practice for life. They help sharpen your thinking and learn to argue efficiently.
Like being a fool in private so you don't mess up in public later.
Exactly. It's a safe space to test ideas, be vulnerable, refine your thinking without harsh judgment. These friends let you do that.
But how do these deep friendships handle life's inevitable changes? As we get older, lives diverge. People mentioned how it gets harder the older you get and the further you go from your home college town.
Yeah, big life events like having a kid, different career paths, these things create separation or distance, even between really close childhood friends. It's just the reality of life's demands.
And that point about work friends often disappearing like a switch once the utility is done, that really hits home for many people, doesn't it? It underlines the ephemeral nature of those utility bonds.
It does. It shows that while connections form around common ground, the deepest ones have to adapt to change, not just depend on unchanging circumstances.
Still, despite the challenges, there was that piece of wisdom someone shared from their mother that really seemed to resonate. Friendships are for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Ah, yes. That's beautiful.
It's such a concise, profound summary, isn't it? A reminder that not every friendship needs to be a friendship of the good, and that's okay. But understanding the difference helps us appreciate and manage all our connections better.
A reason, a season, or a lifetime. That's a deeply resonant way to frame it. Okay, so we've looked at the types of connections. Now let's transition to the dynamics within them. What actually holds them together? Or drives them apart? Let's talk about obligation and trust. Starting with obligation.
Right, obligation. It's often called the glue that connects individuals through duties and a sense of responsibility.
It's a powerful force binding people together. But as the research shows, it's definitely a double-edged sword. In voluntary relationships, like friendships, it often looks like reciprocity, that sense of equally give and take, a mutual understanding of support.
True. But it's interesting how that shifts in involuntary relationships, like family, right? The expectation for strict, immediate reciprocity can be much more flexible.
Absolutely. You might tolerate a family member not reciprocating for a long time, maybe in caregiving situations, in a way you wouldn't with a friend. The bond itself carries a different kind of obligation.
And this is where a big study, the MIDA study, an 18-year longitudinal look at middle-aged adults, made a critical distinction between two types of obligation, light and substantive.
And this distinction is absolutely key. It explains why obligation can have such mixed, almost contradictory effects on our well-being.
Okay, let's break those down because their impact sounds really different. Light obligation, what's that about?
It's characterized by easier, low-cost activities, things like calling your parents regularly just to check in,
Okay,
sending a quick text to a friend, dropping off a meal if someone's sick, just generally being there in small, consistent, relatively easy ways, small acts of connection.
and the impact of that.
Overwhelmingly positive. The study found light obligation was consistently linked to higher individual and relational well-being over the whole 18 years. People engaging in it reported fewer depressive symptoms, more support, and less strain across all close relationships, family, partners, friends. A universal good.
Wow. So why is it so beneficial? What's the psychology?
It's fascinating. It induces positive emotions both for the giver and receiver. It taps into that rewarding feeling of pro-sociality. We feel good doing good. It generates gratitude, reinforcing the cycle.
Hmm.
Plus, it fosters responsive behavior, encourages others to reciprocate those small kindnesses. And often, these actions reflect autonomous motivation. You want to do them. They don't feel like a heavy burden. It's a genuine win-win.
Yeah, win-win. But then there's the other side, substantive obligation.
Yes. And this is the stark contrast. These are defined by high-cost activities involving long-lasting changes to the individual's life.
High cost. Like what's
The study gives a powerful hypothetical, taking in a child of a friend for maybe an extended period due to a crisis, monumental asks, or maybe quitting your job to be a full-time caregiver for a relative. Decisions that profoundly change your whole life.
and the outcomes of those obligations.
Often profoundly negative, unfortunately. Substantive obligation was associated with more depressive symptoms for the person doing the obliging.
Well,
Also, slower increases in friend support over time and more friendship strain. This is where that image of handcuffs really fits. It binds you, yes, but it also causes distress.
so why the negative impact? What's the mechanism there?
It's pretty clear. These obligations demand larger investments of various resources: time, money, emotional energy, patience, far beyond what small acts require.
It drains you.
Exactly. These sustained demands can compromise an individual's well-being and the effort they can devote to other relationships. People caught in these high-cost situations often feel agitation, anxiety, and nervousness from the immense pressure.
And the study notes the large costs may outweigh the benefits over time, especially in friendships.
Particularly in friendships, yes. Substantive obligation can create deep strain there. It tries to enforce a level of reciprocity or commitment that just isn't natural in, say, pleasure or utility friendships, or even in virtuous ones that haven't explicitly agreed to that kind of burden.
So instead of gratitude, you get indebtedness, resentment.
Potentially, yes. Feelings of indebtedness rather than genuine gratitude or resentment from the giver. It can really corrode the bond instead of strengthening it.
Does age make a difference here?
It seems to. The study found effects were mostly uniform across age, except for substantive obligation. That was uniquely linked to slower increases in friend support only for younger adults, under 39 years old.
Interesting. Why younger adults specifically?
Well, the thinking is younger adults might be more susceptible to the strain, maybe less established resources, less life stability, a higher perceived cost when their lives are still forming. They might just lack the bandwidth or support systems to absorb such a huge demand.
Okay, that makes sense. So the study's summary really hits hard. While light obligation might be the glue that keeps us together, substantive obligation might be the handcuffs that keep us together, causing pain and unhappiness.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? And a crucial takeaway. It forces us to really distinguish between genuine acts of care that build connection and these massive burdens that might actually erode it.
Definitely something to think about. Okay, so moving from personal relationships, let's connect this to the professional world. Trust becomes absolutely paramount there.
Hugely important. And the International Journal of Leadership Studies highlights that trust and ethics are commonly conceived as closely related, intertwined concepts in everyday life. We sort of instinctively link them.
We do.
Yet, surprisingly, research often studies them separately, which is a gap.
A big gap, right?
Yeah.
Because in the real world, especially for leaders, trust is everything. It's the currency of influence.
Exactly. So this study aimed to bridge that gap, looking at how ethical leadership behaviors, as seen by followers, directly impact the trust they have in their leaders. Does what we think builds ethical trust actually hold up?
So how do they define ethical leadership? It sounds important, but maybe a bit academic.
It is quite comprehensive. Let me break it down. It's the demonstration of normatively appropriate conduct through personal actions and interpersonal relationships, and the promotion of such conduct to followers through two-way communication, reinforcement, and decision-making.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
Basically, it's leading by example and actively cultivating ethical behavior in your team.
Got it. Leading by example and promoting it. And it breaks down further, right, into being a moral person and a moral manager.
Exactly. Being a moral person is about possessing traits like honesty, trustworthiness, integrity. It's who the leader is.
Their character.
Right. And being a moral manager is about what the leader does, actively fostering moral behavior, setting standards, expectations, ground rules, and following through. So it's not enough to just be good. You have to actively manage with that moral compass.
Okay, makes sense. So the study looked at specific pillars of this ethical leadership and how they impact trust. What did they find?
Some really compelling stuff. First, ethical role modeling. Leaders as crucial ethical role models and guides.
Walking the talk.
And talking the walk. The research found managers who walk the talk and talk the walk, total consistency between words and deeds, resulted in the highest level of trust.
Ah, so both are needed.
Yes, just walking the talk boosts trust, but less so if you don't also explicitly communicate your ethical stance. It's about being consistent and transparent. Being ethical isn't enough. You have to be seen as ethical.
Okay. What about demonstrating morality? This one had a surprising finding, didn't it?
It really did. Most respondents, 62.5%, expected managers to demonstrate morality only on a professional level, and 57.3% observed that.
Only professional, not personal life.
Seems so. It implies followers mainly care about ethics within the work context. The study found demonstrating values on a private level only actually leads to lower trust.
So if your boss is a saint outside work but shady at the office, trust drops.
Exactly. But professional-only ethics and combined professional and private ethics were similarly linked to high trust. So while being moral privately isn't bad, followers primarily need ethical integrity at work, job-relevant morality.
That's really insightful.
Okay.
Okay, next pillar. Securing ethical behavior, using rewards and consequences.
Right. Establishing clear standards and using incentives and consequences. Now, a big majority of managers, 75.4%, were seen using punishment for ethical slip-ups. So accountability happens. But the crucial finding was the highest trust comes not just from punishment, but when leaders balance that punishment with rewarding conformity, rewarding the good ethical behavior.
So it's carrot and stick?
Kind of. It supports the idea that trust and control can support each other. It's a holistic approach. Clear boundaries, fair consequences, but also recognizing and rewarding those who consistently do the right thing. It tells people good behavior is valued, not just expected.
Okay. Then contextualizing success. This sounds important.
Absolutely crucial. How often do we celebrate the win without asking how it was achieved?
Too often, probably.
The study found the highest level of trust happens when managers define success not solely by its final outcome, but also by how that outcome is achieved. The process matters as much as the result.
That's a huge deal for leaders focused only on the bottom line.
It is, and followers want it. A big majority, 67.5%, desired this approach. They wanted leaders to care about the how, but only 41.7% actually saw it in their managers.
Wow, that's a big gap.
A significant gap. It means followers want to know the means were ethical, not just that the ends were successful. Questionable tactics erode trust, even with good results. It damages the culture long term.
Okay, what about communicating ethics?
This involves regular, explicit discussions about ethical standards, making it part of the dialogue. The study found a commitment-based approach where employees are actively coached on ethical dilemmas leads to more trust.
As opposed to just laying down rules.
Exactly. That's the compliance-based approach, just telling people what to do. A third of managers were seen doing that, but less than 10% of followers preferred it.
So people want coaching, not just commands.
It strongly suggests that. Followers seem to crave more active engagement, understanding the why, not just rote obedience. They want to be part of the ethical conversation.
Makes sense. And finally, encouraging transparency.
This one's powerful. Trust is most positively related to managers who encourage followers to stand up against him or her when they perceive that manager to be displaying or allowing unethical behavior.
Wow, encouraging people to challenge you ethically.
Yes. Over half the respondents wanted this, expected it, but only observed it in a third of managers.
Another gap. What does that tell us?
It points to a deep desire for psychological safety, for real open dialogue, even when it means challenging authority on ethical grounds. It's about fostering a culture where speaking up isn't just tolerated, but actively encouraged. A leader who invites ethical challenges actually builds deeper trust.
So bringing it all together,
Yeah.
What's the main takeaway on ethical leadership and trust?
The study's big conclusion is that the relationship between ethical leader behavior and trust is partly moderated by the consistency between desired and observed behavior of a leader.
In plain English.
The more leaders act in ways followers feel is appropriate ethical behavior, the more they're trusted. It's about congruence, meeting expectations.
So leaders really need to understand their followers' specific ethical expectations, not just follow some abstract code.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions, your communication, your definition of success with what your specific team perceives as ethical and trustworthy. Meeting those expectations builds the strongest trust foundation.
That makes so much sense. It's that feeling your leader is truly walking the talk in a way that resonates with you. Okay, this brings us to the deeper currents flowing through all connection. Empathy and the sociology of morality. Let's start with empathy.
Empathy. It's truly foundational, isn't it?
Yep.
Described as a building block of morality and a key ingredient of successful relationships. Why? Because it helps us understand the perspectives, needs, and intentions of others.
Without it, genuine connection is basically impossible, right? Like you saw with Aristotle's Friendships of the Good. If you can't understand another's perspective, how can you connect?
Precisely. And it's crucial to distinguish empathy from sympathy. They get confused a lot.
Yeah, what's the difference again?
Empathy is understanding another person's experience by imagining oneself in that other person's situation. You understand it as if it were happening to you, but crucially, without losing the self-other distinction. You're not in their pain, but you get it.
Okay, and sympathy.
Sympathy is more about being moved by or responding in tune with another person, feeling for them sorrow, pity. Empathy is feeling with or as if you were them. A deeper resonance. It's a vital distinction for understanding connection.
And researchers break empathy down further, right, into two types.
Yes, highlighting different facets. First, there's emotional empathy. This involves actually feeling the same emotion as another person.
Like catching their feeling.
Kind of. It can manifest as personal distress, feeling their anxiety or sadness yourself. And most importantly, it involves feeling compassion for another person. This type is strongly linked to helping others, underpinning those noble examples of human behavior. It's the gut-level response driving compassionate action.
Okay, emotional empathy. What's the second type?
Cognitive empathy, also called empathic accuracy. This is more of a skill, a mental capacity. It's how well an individual can perceive and understand the emotions of another, gaining accurate knowledge about their mental state. Perspective taking.
So less about feeling their feeling, more about understanding it.
Exactly. It's like learning to read nonverbal cues, expressions, tone to infer their internal state. You can cognitively understand someone's sadness, maybe why they feel that way, without necessarily feeling it intensely yourself. Crucial for communication, negotiation.
So how do we actually do this empathy thing? What's going on in our brains?
Well, there are two main theories. First, simulation theory. This suggests when we see someone experiencing an emotion, we unconsciously simulate it in ourselves to know what it feels like.
Like our brain runs a mini simulation.
Sort of. There's evidence of mirror neurons firing both when we observe and when we experience something. And brain areas show overlapping activity for self-focused and other focused thoughts, suggests a shared neural basis.
Okay, simulation theory. What's the other one?
Theory of mind. This is the ability to understand what another person is thinking and feeling based on rules for how one should think or feel. More cognitive, using mental rules or a theory about how minds work to predict or explain other states and actions. More analytical.
So which one is it?
The consensus is it's likely multiple processes incorporating both automatic emotional responses and learned conceptual reasoning. Both can be triggered, working together depending on the situation and the person.
And empathy shows up really early in life, right?
Amazingly early. Infants, 12, 18 months old, show pro-social behaviors like comforting others. By 14, 18 months, spontaneous helping. It seems deeply rooted, almost pre-wired.
Evolutionary roots too, like parental care.
Definitely seems so. Caregivers responding empathetically to infant signals were more successful. This might also relate to observed gender differences, where some studies show women scoring higher on empathy measures, potentially linked to caregiving roles historically.
And once we're adults, our empathy levels tend to stay pretty consistent.
Generally, yes, without age-related decline, and importantly, high empathy correlates positively with well-being and interaction profile. Meaning, high empathy leads to larger social circles and more satisfying relationships. If you can truly understand others, you connect better. Conversely, a lack of empathy can indicate serious issues, like antisocial or narcissistic personality disorders.
Which brings us right back to Aristotle, doesn't it? That lack of empathy being a fundamental barrier to those friendships of the good. You can't appreciate the good in someone if you can't perceive their inner world.
Exactly. Empathy is the heart of understanding, a crucial thread. But that whole tapestry of connection is woven into a larger social fabric, morality itself. Let's explore the sociology of morality now.
Okay, morality and society. Sociology's take.
Well, it's important to know morality was once foundational for sociology's pioneers like Durkheim. He believed the morality of each people is directly related to the social structure. It wasn't just individual, it was about how society constructs and enforces moral codes, indispensable for understanding social cohesion.
But then it got neglected for a while.
It did, maybe seen as too messy or subjective. But now, thankfully, there's an explosion of interest across many fields: neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, and sociology, the argument goes, offers crucial insights often missed elsewhere.
Like what? What's sociology's unique contribution here?
One key thing is understanding complexes of moral meanings, basically how culture shapes our moral landscape. Sociology sees culture not just as individual cognition, but as durable patterns of meaning that emerge socially and are acquired experientially. Shared understandings, unwritten rules, collective narratives learned through living in a society.
Across law, education, religion.
Exactly. And these complexes of moral meanings do three crucial things. First, they're a basis for group solidarity, uniting people around shared values for collective action. Think social justice movements.
Okay, solidarity. What else?
Second, the darker side. They act as a mechanism of exclusion, condemning out groups who don't fit the moral code, leading to prejudice, conflict.
Right, us versus them.
And third, they help create narrative coherence around an individual's life, shaping our identity by giving meaning to our choices and actions. Studying these complex, messy meanings across societies and time is central to sociology's approach, understanding the social containers for our morality.
And another unique thing is sociology's focus on ecological validity, studying morality in the wild.
Exactly. Investigating moral stuff within realistic contexts of daily life, not just isolated lab settings. The argument is compelling. Real-life moral judgments aren't just based on abstract right and wrong.
They're shaped by our standpoint, our role, community.
Profoundly shaped by one's own standpoint in the social world and how these standpoints are implicated in particular situations. It's not just universal truth, it's truth interacting with messy reality.
So what is right at home might not be right at work, like being vulnerable versus negotiating.
Perfect example. Or the trolley problem versus real-life medical ethics with complex trade-offs. Real dilemmas often involve conflicts and trade-offs between competing goods, not clear-cut hypotheticals. Sociology's ecologically valid approach is crucial for understanding these day-to-day moral concerns we all navigate. Lived morality.
So where does sociology go from here?
Well, the source acknowledges past disciplinary fragmentation, maybe some reluctance to integrate psychological or biological insights, but it emphasizes ongoing efforts to build bridges, engage with other fields, recognizing that a full understanding of morality and human connection needs diverse perspectives working together.
A call for collaboration.
Absolutely.
Wow, what an incredible journey today. We've really covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Millennia of thought, cutting-edge research, uncovering these intricate layers of human connection.
We really have. From Aristotle's timeless wisdom on friendship's utility, pleasure, versus the enduring power of virtue-based bonds.
Right, the ones that take real work. To the empirical realities of obligation, how light obligation is like glue, but substantive obligation can become painful handcuffs.
And exploring trust in leadership, how critical it is to meet expectations, how actions and the way success is achieved build that trust.
And then diving into empathy as the heart of understanding and seeing how morality itself is woven into our social fabric, shaping identities and communities.
It's all deeply interconnected.
So as you, our listener, navigate your own complex web of relationships, personal friendships, family ties, professional connections, maybe consider these insights.
Right.
Are you actively nurturing those friendships of the good, the ones that transcend circumstance and foster mutual growth?
Or perhaps prioritizing fleeting pleasures or utility. Are you mindful of the difference between light and substantive obligation, ensuring your efforts genuinely strengthen bonds, not become a source of pain?
And in your own sphere of influence, whether you lead a team or just interact with colleagues and friends, are you actively building trust, meeting expectations, embodying ethical behavior, recognizing that how you do things speaks volumes?
How might a deeper understanding of all these dynamics empower you to cultivate richer, more authentic, truly enduring connections in every part of your life?
We hope this deep dive gives you some food for thought, helps you reflect on these questions, and maybe even embark on your own journey of building more profound and meaningful relationships.